Hey y'all. Welcome to the New England Chargers Transplant. My name is Jalen Holmes. For this first episode, it just be just breaking down what my podcast is and what content that would be expected to be coming from my channel, what stuff I will be posting as far as my YouTube and stuff I go on my Twitter account that I have for this podcast channel. And just for starters, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a 20-year-old college student. I'm originally from the state of California, but I moved to New England, and now that's hence the name, the New England Chargers Transplant. Um, Transplant is a person or someone who moves to a different area and is a newcomer to that area. And I am a Chargers fan that moved to New England, which is hence the name, a New England Chargers Transplant. Um, you know, Living in New England and being a Chargers fan is definitely such an interesting thing. And creating this name just allows me to like encapsulate the Chargers fan that I am and being living in the living in New England. And yeah, it's just a lot, and it's just fun, just being a Chargers fan. I've been a Chargers fan since about 2011. I lived in San Diego, so that's my roots of being a Chargers fan. And I've had you know family members who worked for the Chargers before. And I just always have my ties to the Chargers, and just have that deep connection in becoming a Chargers fan and just rooting for them since 2012, 2011. Just has my fandom going forward, as far as why I love Chargers, and why I continue to watch the games and root for them every year. I just love being a fan. I'm a big fan of Chargers. So um just for starters, I'll just talk about some of the content that I'll be posting on this channel, and on my Twitter, and everything that will come from this podcast. Just we'll be doing trade and free agency updates, like big updates, like the Mekhi Becton signing that happened this last off season. You know, um, as far as the certain trades that would possibly be made, like Elijah Molden being traded from the Titans last year, trades like those will be, trades, videos about those trades will be, posted in, just certain episodes that I will be, you know, creating, and just making videos about, just talking about what it would mean for the team and stuff like that. Also, just position battles that may happen during training camp. Just having conversations about those, and what just going into depth chart analysis of the Chargers football team. That's will be something that I will be talking about here on this channel, and what would be most likely to see in videos to come out about that. But next, week to week game breakdowns will be expected during the season. Just going through each week for each matchup for the week, just breaking down certain pros and cons that the Chargers have against said team in this upcoming season. Just having those conversations. Maybe possible live streams during the games, just doing play by play and just reacting with fellow Chargers fans that may be watching this, maybe watching the podcast episodes, and live streams are expected. Eventually, once just get my footing as far as creating episodes and whatnot. That should be expected from week to week. Every Sunday, most likely every Sunday during the actual football season. It just should be expected. To see some, um, you know, we'll see some live streams, see some episodes released, to talk about the game plan, talk about the breakdown, and also watch the game live. That's always fun watching with fellow Chargers fans. The reactions, stuff, crazy stuff that can happen in the games at any time. So, you know, and just lastly, draft analysis. Obviously, we had a big draft just in April 24th. You know, just doing draft analysis for next year's draft, and just having conversations about the needs that the Chargers may have, and just having conversations about those, and what could be added to the team, what directions, and as far as what Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz want to do with the team, just having conversations about the draft. You know. Um, this will be draft analysis, like I said, and just breaking down film of certain guys and just having conversations about like what guys going to next year's draft can add and build to a championship roster for the Chargers. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, to start for the first segment of this podcast, be about the Chargers schedule release. Um, just to have some thoughts about the schedule release in general. I feel like the Chargers social media team did a really good job, as always, putting together a you know, great video of just a whole lot of fun, a whole lot of chaos as far as what they do and put into the Easter eggs into the schedule release videos. I just really think that what they do each year is just top notch, and it just obviously you know just goes to show like the dedication that the social media team and what they do. Yeah, they did a good job. Like the Sims, the Sim schedule release last year was pretty great. I think it was pretty funny. It was definitely really good. It was all the, like I said, all the Easter eggs that they have packed into the videos is definitely like very fun to watch. And yeah, what they did as far as with the Minecraft thing was pretty funny. As soon as I seen it come over my Twitter timeline, it was just, you know, I was like, they did Minecraft this time. It's gonna be it's pretty funny. I'm sure maybe like next year, the social media team might, do a GTA style, I don't know, GTA style schedule release because GTA 6 is dropping next year, and maybe they'll do something like that, But like I said, the Chargers social media team always seems to, create great, um, create great social media content in general. What they do and how they post, and just as far as getting the engagement from our fans is just they're just great at what they do. So that's my take. That's my take on like how the social how I felt about the social media the how the social media team does, and also about the Charger schedule release. It's just definitely they definitely do a really good job at what they do, for sure, for sure. Just to start to get into the actual schedule itself, let me go ahead and pull up the slide presentation that I have. We're just going to go through and reading through the schedule itself. Week 1, we play Kansas City in Brazil. Week 2, we play the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. Week 3, we play Denver. Week 4, we play the Giants. Week 5, we play Washington. Week 6, we play Miami. Week 7, we play Indiana Colts. Week 8, we play Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football. Week 9, we play Tennessee Titans. Week 10, we have a hard matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Week 11, we play Jacksonville. Week 12, we have our bye week. Thank you for the week 12 bye week this year. We always been plagued by the early bye weeks last few years. I'm glad that we finally have a later bye week. Week 13, LA to be playing the Raiders again for the second matchup of the year. Week 14, we're going to be playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Week 15, we're playing KC again. Week 16, we'll be playing Dallas. Week 17, we're playing Houston. Week 18, we are playing Denver again. Just to start, I have some talking points just to, I have some talking points to talk about the schedule. As first off, we're just looking at the schedule right here. We are playing, we're playing some tough teams this year, especially compared to our schedule last year. I would say that our schedule last year was pretty easy. I would say it's like we had an easier schedule compared to other teams in the league, and I feel like just looking at the schedule right here, this is a hard schedule. We have the Commanders, we have the Eagles, obviously we have the Chiefs that we play every year. We have the Texans, we have the Vikings that we're playing. We have Pittsburgh again. We are stacked up against good teams you know, in within our schedule. And I think it's gonna be really tough for the Chargers as far as what they need to do to win these games and make when they matter. And it just comes down to these prime games this year. We're playing some tough opponents just coming out the bat, you know. Um Denver and the Raiders got better. Pete Carroll going over to the Raiders is something, it's big for them, as far as what we know of how the Raiders performed for the past few years. I feel like they've got a coach now that can like take them to the greater lengths. Obviously, the roster can use some improvements, but their team's gotten better. Picking up Geno Smith, drafting Ashton Jinty, with the draft drafting Brock Bowers as well. Their team is heading in a certain direction, and I feel like obviously with the moves that they've made, they're going in a good places. And then Denver as well. The Broncos is getting better. Their team is really good, and obviously with Pat Surtain winning Defensive Player of the Year last year, their defense is really good. They got a good edge room, they got good corners, and the defense is top 10 in the league. They got top 10, top 5 defense even. It's just there's a lot that we're gonna have to deal with, and a lot of as far as the game planning, as far as what we need to do from coming from last year to this year. Looking at the film and then also just breaking down and um, understanding the way that the Raiders and Denver are going to play within our division. And obviously, we have Kansas City. Kansas City, they were in the Super Bowl last year. Um, they made some slight improvements. Drafting Jalen Royals, picking Omar Norman Lott, defensive tackle, and obviously, you know, once we're getting into these conversations, we're talking about how a lot of times once you look at the Chiefs on paper, you could say that they didn't really get much better, but they've been in the Super Bowl all these years, so we can say that the Chiefs offense hasn't really got much better, or they're not really all that good, or it doesn't look all that good for them, but they still maintain to be in the Super Bowl at most years, every year. It's been that way. It just goes to show as far as what Andy Reid does with that team. you know they're just gonna they just understand, they know how to win, they know how to do it, especially once you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes who's just leading their team. It's just they just know what to do. They know how to they know how to get there. They know how to win these tough games. A lot of their games last year, they one score games, but they still did it. They found out how to win. They won those games. And I just think, you know obviously we're playing them week one. It's going to be a tough battle that we would have to fight for. And I feel like the games have been closer. They've been closer, which is good. I feel like I have some confidence in the Chargers for to be able to beat the Chiefs, but it's just obviously playing against them. We always go toe to toe, and the Chiefs have been winning these matchups against us, but you know I feel like with the improvements that we have to our roster, is definitely we're getting to a point where I feel like we can get some Chiefs in competition for sure. For sure. Drink some water. Yeah. This this the schedule is really tough. It's really tough. As far as the playoff teams that we played in last year's schedule, we played I think 7 playoff teams in last year's schedule, and we only beat one of those teams. Would be the Broncos, and the Broncos are different. And they're a different team this year. I feel like they improved really well, and I just think it's going to be a testament as far as what the Chargers are going to have to prove to the league and prove to themselves as far as, can we beat these playoff teams? Can we beat these playoff teams as we struggled against them last year? But I feel like definitely within Jesse Minter's defense, and then Greg Roman's offense. We can talk about his in a second. But Jesse Minter's defense, as far as the players that were elevated, Puna Ford, Tarheeb Steele, Cam Hart, Tierra Tart, those guys were elevated through his defense, and I feel like the guys played really well with each other as far as the game planning, as far as what they did week to week was really good as far as what they were doing. And I feel like there's obviously a lot to improve on in certain areas, but I feel like the defense is really at a good point. And as far as our offense, with the additions of Najee Harris, Omar and Hampton, Tyler Conklin, Rondé Gatson, Trey Harris, and then Makai Becton signing. Be the George Ortiz, you know, he has set out to, make this team better, make improvements to the offense, and give Justin Herbert more of a chance. And I feel like they did that really well as well as the draft. But obviously, there's certain questions to be talked about as far as the interior O line. Um, you know, with Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman's performance. You know, I Zion Johnson didn't turn out to be the player that people thought that he was going to be for sure. You know, I know this obviously he was a Staley pick, but at the end of the day, Harbaugh, Harbaugh definitely has hope in him, but he just, as far as with picking up stunts and making the proper reads, this is something that he hasn't been able to grasp since in his time in the NFL. But I wish that within this current season that he can make those improvements. So like those questions about our interior offense line kind of go away. Obviously, just thinking back to the Houston game, that Houston game, that was it was sad. If it was sad, to be honest. Just the interior line breaking down, and forcing Herbert to make these tough throws. And obviously I would say that Herbert wasn't perfect in this game. It obviously was his worst game of his career for sure, but obviously he needs a line that can block for him. And I feel like they made some commitment into improving this interior offense line, signing Andre James, signing Mekhi Becton, and but through those signings, through those signings, they want to improve the interior offense line. Also drafting Branson Taylor, they're going to play him at left guard and to try to do that, you know. But they I feel like there's still some questions there. Um, Maybe Andre James will beat out Bradley Bozeman in during trading camp. Maybe he won't, but obviously the durability that Bradley Bozeman does have. He played all the games. He didn't get injured in last year's season. And then Andre James, he was out with an ankle injury, and he only played 11 games, I believe, last year, and he got beat by Jackson Powers Johnson for the Raiders. So but he's had good play in years past in the 2023 season. I believe that if Andre James can get back to who he was in that season, I feel like he would obviously, have the right to start over Bradley Bozeman. But obviously, Bozeman, he has his extension. He played all games. He's a veteran. He's a leadership. He's a leader for the O line, and that's valuable within what Harbaugh wants for his team. So it's like Bradley Bozeman's going to be plugged in as the starter for now. Things may change throughout training camp, but I feel like for now and what we going forward, Bradley Bozeman would be the starter. You know, but to transition to another talking point, we have the three first games of the season is AFC West teams: KC, Raiders, Denver. That's huge. That's huge. Playing three divisional games to start off the season is definitely something that is it's a huge test for the Chargers, because You can come out 2-1. You can come out 1-2. You can come out 0-3 in the division as well if things get bad. Obviously, once these divisional games, they're tough because obviously you play these teams twice a year, and they know what you like to do. They have an idea of the game plan. It's just obviously comes down to the better team and who game plan better and attack the weaknesses of the other team, of course. But obviously, you know it being three divisional games to start the year, that's big. This is be some good football to watch for sure. I think I have utmost confidence that the Chargers can beat the Raiders. What we done to our roster is really well. Um, it's just it's gonna take a lot to beat KC for game one. And as far as the first time we played Kansas City last year in week 4, Joe Alt was hurt, Rashawn Slater was out, and then Derwin James was out with suspension. And having those guys being able to play in week 1 is going to really help us. As far as the game plan that Greg Roman wants to be able to run. Having both his you have strong tackles, you have a great guard in Mekhi Becton, and veteran Bradley Wilson, Zion Johnson. We're going to have an emphasis on running the ball as far as what we want to do with Najee and Omarion. That duo, I think when they we're definitely going to see some good football coming from them too. We're going to see some good football for sure. And establishing that game plan week 1, we're going to be able to see that. And we run a lot of play action, especially what we do as far as throwing the ball to Ladd and Quentin, and then we have Trey Harris pick up, and we have the Mike Williams pick up as well. I like the way that the offense is moving, and I feel like it's gonna be big. It's gonna be big in this Chiefs game to establish the run and establish that play action once we're playing them for sure. Um, yeah. There's a lot that's gonna come from this season and this schedule. Obviously, you have the benefits of having a later bye week. You know, playing having a week 5 bye week and then going the rest of the season. Dealing with the injuries that we dealt with last season, and it's tough. It's tough on the players, but having a later bye week is important. It helps out the team for sure. You know, it helps out the team for sure. Recovery, resting, recovery, and be able to take that break. Post bye week is a gauntlet. Like most Chargers fans been saying, it's a gauntlet. This is the point in time where we're probably in this area of where um we're making a playoff push. Okay, we have Raiders. We're playing the Raiders week 13. You know how those games go. Philly, Kansas City, Dallas. Maybe they'll be good enough at this point of the year, or maybe they won't be. We never know with Dallas. Then we have Houston, and then we have Denver again. That's a gauntlet of a schedule for sure. A gauntlet of schedule for sure. Um, it's gonna be good football to watch. It's gonna be a lot of anxiety for Chargers fans for sure, for sure. But I feel like the Chargers are at this point where the rosters I feel like good enough to make the playoffs again. I feel like I said, the additions that we made are really good. But just to start talking about my prediction of you know how what games we're gonna win and what games we're gonna lose. I have the Chargers at about 10-7 on this current year, and then we're gonna make the 5th seed again. Um, I think that Chargers fans are a bit too optimistic in this point in time. Um, Obviously, like I said earlier, the improvements that Denver and the improvements that the Raiders had could make things hard and make things complicated for the Chargers, and what like from a game to game basis. Once we play them, it's gonna be tough. I can see. I don't necessarily see us um winning both games against KC. It's tough. I believe that we have like almost got there. Like we had, like I've like talked about a few minutes ago. You know, we had a good game without having Joel, Rashawn Slater, and Derwin James, and that you know, it was a one score game. You know, in week 4 of last season, but I just it's hard to say that we'll win the division or win like win 12 games. I just, especially, just considering, you know, like I said, the schedule's harder this year, and we played a lot of weak teams, and obviously we had a high floor, but we had a high floor, but was our ceiling really high? No, and I feel like that was apparent in what we've seen in the playoff games against the Texans. It's just real tough. It's just real tough as far as what we'll be able to do this current year against these current teams that we've matched up against. But 10-7 is what I feel like is a proper take as far as what teams will be and what teams what we won't. I just I just feel like that's the games that we'll win. Um, we beat the Raiders week 2. We beat the Raiders. Beat Denver. Sorry, beat Denver week 3. Week 4 beat Giants. I don't know if I have the most confidence that we'll beat the Commanders. I feel like we can beat Miami. We beat Indy. I don't know about the Vikings. Playing them, they're a great defense. And what they do is it's like I don't know if we'll beat them. I have them penciled in. I have it penciled in as a loss. Beat the Titans. Obviously, Titans have a better quarterback than Cam Ward. I feel like they're going in a different direction. They have some slight improvement to the offense line, but we'll still come out with a dub against them for sure. Then Pittsburgh. Um, we had a good game against Pittsburgh, but we ended up losing that game. I don't know. I see us losing that game as well, and then winning against Jacksonville, winning against the Raiders, I'm going to sweep them for sure. That's how I feel, and I feel like that's how I feel like we're at as far as playing the Raiders in this current time within our roster. Philly, that's a hard game. I feel like we're going to lose against Philly. Philly's going to play as well. They have what they do within their offense. Their team, just the roster's just stacked for sure. Um, KC at Arrowhead. Obviously, playing KC at Arrowhead is really hard to beat. It's really hard to beat them for sure. You know, the Cowboys. I feel like we're gonna beat. I feel like we can beat the Cowboys for sure. Probably. I don't know. This Houston game. The Houston game's a toss up. Really, this is where I'm in between. I'm on the 10-7 or 11-6. It could be Houston, maybe, but Houston was able to do last year was pretty tough, for sure. We might lose against them, and I do have us beating Denver in Week 18 as well. Um, but it's gonna be a really, really difficult game. You know, playing Denver. We struggled against Bo Nix running. As far as our defense, he was able to get out the pocket and run the ball. We have some struggles against that, and then also as their improving offense. Picking up R.J. Harvey and picking up Pat Bryant. Um, their offense is coming together, and what Sean Payton wants to do for that team, and you know, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for the Chargers, but I feel like within the way that we played Denver last year, I feel like I have the utmost confidence for us to be able to beat them for sure, for sure, for sure. I think that's I'm gonna wrap up this conversation about wrap up the conversation about the Charger schedule. I believe that the Chargers have made great improvements to our roster, and I believe that they can definitely do what it takes to win these big games. It's just gonna be a huge test to them to get over the hump to beat these playoff teams. Like I said, we only beat one playoff team before. As far as last year, it was Denver. We have to be able to get over that hump to be able to, beat these playoff teams that will play. We struggled against them last year, but I feel like with the additions to offense and the way that the offense is shaping up and the way that the defense is shaping up as well, is going to be good for our team, and we're going to be able to win these games against these playoff teams. Obviously, but with the harder schedule, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to be able to see. We're gonna have to just watch it come next season for sure. It's gonna be there's a lot of big tests. I'm gonna be tweeting about it, talking about it. It's gonna be scary, but I feel like I have the utmost confidence in Jim Harbaugh and what they want to do with this team and going forward. And we'll probably see some in-season trades. You never know. Maybe see a veteran free agent signing, maybe to the offensive line. Before the season starts. But I feel like that would come in training camp. That's how I feel like, and most likely it will come from. But you know, it's gonna be exciting to see, honestly. But yeah, just to wrap up and end this podcast. Thank you for everybody that tuned in and watched. Make sure to check out and subscribe. And if you enjoy the podcast, and follow me on my Twitter at Jalen I Holmes, and also the New England Chargers Transplant channel Twitter account as well. And I appreciate everybody who's watching today. Bye bye.